This is commentary for the Workbook of A Course in Miracles, Lesson 31. I am not the victim of the world that I see. Today's idea is an introduction to your declaration of release. One of the ways to look at the workbook is that it's having us discover the power of our wanting and accepting as an article of faith that everything that happens to us is a function of that wanting. And so if unloving thoughts are there, there's some part of the mind which we're not aware of wants those unloving thoughts. That's why they're there. But that we can just as easily want those we can just as easily want our loving thoughts. So this declaration of release is key, and we're going to talk in this lesson about a structure that's going to come into focus of workbook practice. And the structure will be more firmly brought into focus throughout or used throughout the rest of practice. And it's basically a morning and evening practice, frequent reminders during the day, and then what the Course calls response to temptation, the practice on the fly when the situations emerge. Remember, when he first started introducing structure, was under the idea of being determined to see, and that the structure is authority issues can come up, and resistance to the structure. But it's important that we use that that we use some structure. Let's look at chapter 12 and a couple of things that it talks about our practice. Where it says, "We are therefore embarking on an organized, well structured, and carefully planned program aimed at learning how to offer to the Holy Spirit everything you do not want. He knows what to do with it. You do not understand how to use what He knows. Whatever is given Him that is not of God is gone. Yet you must look at it yourself in perfect willingness, for otherwise His knowledge remains useless to you. Surely He will not fail to help you, since help is His only purpose." And then it just goes to say that you have greater reason. Do you not have greater reason for fearing the world as you perceive it than for looking at the cause of the fear, our unloving thoughts, our wanting them on some level and letting it go? So it's key here that we're embarking on an organized and well structured and carefully planned program. He goes on to say in this section this idea that you have learning handicaps in a very literal sense. And basically, in this chapter 12 and in this section, it says that the ego as our teacher, its goal is to try and learn but don't succeed. That's what the ego is trying to get us in. So that's the impairment that it's talking about. It's this conflict inside of us that though we want to have that loving, there's another loving thoughts as our experience. There's another part that doesn't want it. So that's the impairment, the learning handicaps. The skills are so impaired that you can progress only under a constant, clear-cut direction provided by a teacher who can transcend your resources. He becomes your resource because of yourself you cannot learn. So this is really important thing, that we need this sense of the of our higher power, something greater than ourselves, because we're unaware that we've made this decision, some part of our minds, of wanting to, love to go away, to have unloving thoughts. So, and then we forgot that we forgot. So the learning situation, which you place yourself, is impossible. How can you learn if another part of you is trying to not learn? That you clearly require a special teacher and a curriculum. So, it's not a good choice of a teacher if it's the ego who's trying to encourage you to learn but doesn't want you to succeed. So, this is why the course, the workbook has structure, because we need this special teacher with a special curriculum to help us undo these decisions that we made inside for separation. So um, you're encouraged to follow the structure as much as possible, forgiving ourselves when we don't. Okay, so today's idea is your introduction to your declaration of release. Again, the idea should be applied to both the world you see without and the world within. In applying the idea, we will use a form of practice that will be used more and more with changes as indicated. So the sustained practice and then frequent applications or frequent reminders. Those are two aspects of the structure, and then we'll mention the other one towards the end. So two longer practice periods going on here, two longer practice periods of practice with the idea for today are needed 3 to 5 minutes, one in the morning, one in the evening. And these are the instructions. During that time, look about you slowly while repeating the idea 2 or 3 times, and then close your eyes and apply the same idea to your inner world. So, our inner world are these negative, unloving thoughts that come from that decision. Uh, and so, even though they're there, we're declaring that we will not be a victim of those, whether we see it out in the world or we see it inside. So you will escape from both together, for the inner is the cause of the outer. Okay, so as you survey your inner world, merely let whatever thoughts cross your mind come into your awareness, each to be considered for a moment and then replaced by the next. Try not to establish any kind of hierarchy among them. Just watch them come and go as dispassionately as possible. Now, this goes back to our power of wanting um, and not being disturbed by the unloving thoughts that are there. That's why we're doing the practice, because they're there, and but we have to realize that they can't prevent us from coming into touch with uh, our loving thoughts. So this dispassion from them, the detachment from them. So do not dwell on anyone in particular, but try to let the stream move on evenly and calmly without any special investment on your part. And as you sit quietly, watch your thoughts. Repeat today's idea to yourself as often as you care to, but with no sense of hurry. So I try to make a point about what's our part and what's the Holy Spirit's part. And uh, our part is to just not want these unloving thoughts. Even it's not to be without them. It's just to realize that we don't really want them, and that their presence cannot prevent us from coming to our loving thoughts. Let me bring up chapter 18 here, where he talks about this. It says, "Trust not your good intentions; they're not enough, but trust your implicitly your willingness, whatever else may enter. Concentrate only on this, and be not disturbed that shadows surround it." So, as we're looking at these inner thoughts, the negative, unloving thoughts, the sadness, depression, guilt, all of those things, we're trying to get this dispassion from it. And by looking at it, we'll realize that we don't really want them, and that will undo uh, uh, their presence in our minds. So he's saying, this is why you came. If you could come without them, you wouldn't need the holy instant. Come, come not to it in arrogance, assuming you must achieve the state its coming brings with it. So, um, the ego is there saying, okay, see, you've got unloving thoughts. How can love be real? You're not loving. And so we attempt to make ourselves, loving, to be without these thoughts, all of that. But it's just the unwanting them that's the key. And it's by looking at them that will make us realize we don't really want them. So the miracle of the holy instant the miracle of the holy instant lies in your willingness to let them be what it is. And in your willingness for this lies also your acceptance of yourself as you are meant to be. So it's really key to not be disturbed as we take a look inside and see these unloving thoughts that are there. Just to recognize on some level that's what we wanted. It's not a problem that they're there. We just have to look at them, and it's in looking at them that we'll be able to let them go. Okay, so in addition, repeat the idea for today as often as possible. This is the second structure is frequent reminders. Remind yourself that you're making a declaration of independence in the name of your freedom, and in your freedom lies the freedom of the world. And then in this last paragraph, uh, the idea for today is also a particularly useful one to use as a response to any form of temptation that may arise. So this is this on the fly practice when the situations come up that we apply this idea that I'm not going to be a victim of this, not being disturbed by the fact that it's there, just recognizing the power of our wanting. What we really do want is our loving thoughts, our loving self, and now we're declaring that we're going to be released from these unloving thoughts and that we're not a victim of them. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks.